Dimly lit living room felt like a time capsule, a mixture of warmth and despair wrapped in shadows. As thunder grumbled ominously in the distance, George Strait sat hunched over in the corner, guitar resting on his knee. Outside, a ferocious storm churned the sky, rain pounding against the windows like the relentless beat of a heart longing for something lost. The air inside was thick with the musty scent of old wooden walls that had witnessed both laughter and heartbreak. He reached for the guitar, fingers brushing against the smooth wood, and took a deep breath. The storm outside seemed to mimic the tempest within him. Strumming a few chords, George let his thoughts drift back to Maria, her laughter, her unwavering support, and the way the world felt whole when she was there. Each note rang out heavy with the weight of his sorrow, echoing the memories of their life together. "Maria," he whispered, almost as if speaking her name could bring her spirit back into the room. The words danced across his lips, accompanied by bitter-sweet notes, resonating softly but powerfully with his grief. As he sang, the lyrics poured from him like rainwater streaming through cracks, desperate, unfiltered, raw. "When the storm comes, will you still be there?" The song was his plea, a bridge to the love that felt so far away. Just as he reached the climax of his sorrowful serenade, a gentle flutter caught his attention. A wounded bird, soaked and shivering, had found its way through the open window and landed awkwardly on the arm of the chair beside him. George hesitated, his heart aching for the little creature quivering in the corner of his eye. Without thinking, he froze, caught between sympathy and disbelief. It was as if the universe had sent him a sign, a symbol of his own fragility amidst the raging storm of his emotions. "Hey there, little one," he murmured softly, his voice barely breaking through the thunderous backdrop. The bird looked up at him, fear evident in its wide eyes. George felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to extend a finger toward the trembling creature. In that brief moment, he recognized the connection they shared. Both were lost souls seeking refuge from the storm. He shifted his gaze back to the guitar, burying his pain in the music once more. "You and me against the world," he whispered, the melody shifting toward something lighter and more hopeful. Each note resonated not just with sorrow, but with a hint of determination, a flicker of light breaking through the dense fog of grief that had engulfed him for far too long. As he played, the rain continued its symphony outside, but within him, a quiet mystery began to unfurl. Perhaps this fragile bird, finding sanctuary in his presence, represented something more than mere coincidence. It was a reminder that even in the depths of despair, there lay a possibility for healing. George continued to strum, weaving melodies that seemed to cradle both the memories of Maria and the delicate life before him. His heart ached, yet within that ache, he could feel the first stirrings of a quiet resolve. As the storm raged on, George surrendered to the music, allowing it to guide him gently through the darkness, illuminating the path back to life, love, and, perhaps, forgiveness. As the final chord lingered in the air, the room felt strangely transformed. The storm may have raged on outside, but in this small bubble of existence, George held a wounded creature close, a testament to hope against the odds. The echoes of his bittersweet song clung to the walls, and within his chest, a soft hum of possibility began to blossom anew. Days slipped into weeks, and the storm outside faded into gentle rains, leaving everything glistening with a fresh sheen. Yet within George, the tempest still churned. The bird, now a familiar presence, continued to find refuge at his window, reminding him of the delicate balance between life and loss. George often played his guitar in the afternoons, the soft melodies weaving in and out of his memories of Maria. Flashes more than complete memories surfaced, her dancing at their wedding, spinning with joy under the twinkle of lights while they celebrated together. He could hear her laughter, a sweet sound that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of his heart. "So you dance like the world is yours, Maria," he recalled whispering to her, the warmth of that night still flickering in his chest like a candle fighting against the dark. But those moments of joy were always shadowed by the anguishing memories of their last days together. The sterile scent of the hospital blended with the harsh beeping of machines, reminders of how he had helplessly watched her deteriorate. Guilt twisted inside him. "What could I have done differently?" he often asked, the words echoing endlessly in the confines of his thoughts. When she had needed him most, he felt like he had failed her completely. Yet even in the depths of despair, brief glimmers of hope emerged. George remembered how she encouraged him to strive, to remain passionate about life despite its unpredictability. Her voice would resonate in his mind. Life isn't about perfection. It's about finding joy in the imperfections. Attempting to carry that wisdom forward often took him back into isolation. Friends reached out, wanting to pull him from the shadows, but George kept them at arm's length. Each message from Carlos or others felt like a haunting reminder of his inadequacies and unfulfilled promises, amplifying the guilt he couldn't outrun. It was during a casual visit to the local cafe that the stark comfort of camaraderie began nudging him back to reality. The place was warm and inviting, filled with the scent of fresh coffee and the sound of light chatter. He spotted Carlos seated across from Sophia, sharing a moment of laughter that felt foreign and yet so familiar. "George!" Carlos called out, inviting him to join them. The sound broke through George's haze, and with a reluctant sigh, he approached their table. "Hey, you!" Carlos grinned, as if the very act of his presence was enough to lift spirits. "We were just reminiscing about the old times. Remember that honky-tonk where you first performed?" "Yes, those were good times," George replied, forcing a smile while the weight of memories tugged at him. Sophia looked up, her eyes full of empathy. "We've been worried about you," she said gently. "It's okay to miss Maria. You don't have to go through this alone." Guilt and vulnerability clashed in George's heart. "I just don't know how to move on," he confessed, each word feeling heavier than the last. "It feels wrong." Carlos leaned in, his voice low but firm. "You don't have to forget her to keep living. Your past is part of you, George. Embracing it doesn't mean you're abandoning her memory." George sat back, struck by their kindness. The conversation shifted naturally, each sharing their own stories, struggles that echoed within the walls of their hearts. Each word became a thread, weaving their separate hardships into a shared tapestry of resilience. Sophia spoke of her own loss, a simultaneous understanding slicing through their collective grief. "We're all seeking ways forward, aren't we? Through music or stories," she mused softly. "Your songs, George, can touch people in ways that even words alone cannot express." A flicker of determination ignited within him at her words. "Maybe I could share our stories," he suggested hesitantly. "Write something that can help us all heal." Her light smile promised connection. "I'd love that. Your music has the power to bring solace." As they exchanged ideas, the weight on George's chest felt lighter, lifted with shared understanding. Laughter mixed with shared tears, and they all opened up more, their collective vulnerabilities creating an unexpected bond. When the cafe dimmed its lights, signaling the end of the day, George felt a warmth in their conversation that eclipsed the pain gnawing at him. "I'll write," he whispered to himself, mingling hope with a fragile resolve. The moon cast a gentle glow as he returned home, gazing at its soft light reflecting on the earth below. For the first time in months, George felt the possibility of tomorrow. He envisioned a melody that would encompass both love and remembrance, one where he could honor Maria without losing himself. In the quiet of his room, under the watchful gaze of the stars, George contemplated how to move forward. The journey was uncertain, but as he held his guitar and the small bird nestled nearby, hope began to blossom within him, intertwining with the memories he carried, whispering that healing was not just possible, it was waiting to be embraced. The sunlight streamed into George's home the next morning, infusing it with warmth and possibility. He rose from his slumber with a newfound spark, the weight of recent months seeming a little lighter. The guitar lay invitingly beside him, urging him to start shaping the thoughts swirling in his mind into music. Settling on the porch, he cradled the instrument in his lap as the brisk morning air danced around him. Outside, the world was alive. Birds chirped and the leaves fluttered in the breeze. In this serene setting, George sought to transform his sorrow into a celebration of life through song. He struck the first chord, letting it resonate through the quiet morning. Although his fingers felt hesitant, the notes began to flow, capturing the complex emotions in his heart. Each strum became a testament to both love and loss, a gentle weaving of memories intertwined with a yearning for hope. "Life's a song, isn't it?" George said softly, as the words tumbled out amidst the notes. "It carries us through both joy and sorrow." His thoughts turned to their earlier conversation at the cafe, to Sophia's encouraging smile. In that moment, he became resolved to express not just his grief, but the shared experiences of others, those learning to navigate their paths in the aftermath of loss. "Under the stars we dance in memories," he sang quietly. shaping lines that honored the bittersweet nature of love. With every word and melody, George felt a part of himself unburdened, a cathartic release of the deep-seated pain that had held him captive for so long. As the sun rose higher, George found his rhythm, losing track of time as he poured his heart into the composition. The outside world faded, consumed by the melody that nestled in his soul. With each note, he began to realize his grief didn't need to be a weight to bear alone. It could become a source of strength. The hours slipped by unnoticed, and as evening slipped in, George laid back, finally recalling how good it felt to create. He looked out at the sky painted in soft pastels and felt a promise lingering on the horizon. "It's just the beginning," he whispered to himself, a vow of hope for the future. The next day, George invited Carlos and Sofia over, eager to share the fruits of his labor. "I've been writing," he said, trying to mask his nerves. He prepared a simple meal, letting the comforting aroma fill the space between them as he hoped to cultivate an atmosphere of camaraderie and inspiration. Carlos arrived first, his warm smile easing George's anxiety. "It's great to see you back at it," he said, as he settled at the table. As Sofia walked in, George felt a flutter of nerves, yet excitement colored the space as well. "I want to share something important with you both," he confessed, gesturing toward the guitar resting against the wall, ready to bridge the distance between fear and connection. With the room quiet, he began to play. The melodies poured from him, delivering words crafted from his heart. As they spilled forth, they told of love and loss, resilience against heartache, and the strength found in vulnerability. When he finished, silence enveloped the room, heavy and charged with emotion. "I never knew you could capture so much in a song," Sofia said, tears shimmering in her eyes. "That touched every part of me." Carlos nodded, his expression proud. "You're able to turn your pain into something meaningful, George. That is a talent few possess." The energy shifted to collaboration as George shared what he envisioned for the song. They discussed each line, crafting the lyrics into a shared ode to their experiences. Together, they unraveled the essence of their joys and sorrows, illuminating the path forward through music. As they laughed and shared stories through the evening, the burden that had once weighed so heavily began to lift. "We should write as a trio," Carlos suggested eagerly. "Use our roots and the memories we share." George's heart swelled at the idea. This was not just his journey anymore. It had expanded into a collective experience that breathed life into the memories, binding them together with a newfound purpose. As twilight deepened, George felt an exhilarating awakening within. This wasn't just about songwriting. It was about rebuilding connections. The bond forged through grief and triumph brought each moment alive with a richer meaning. The stars twinkled above him when they parted that night, illuminating George's heart with possibilities. The shadows from his past still lingered, but now they were tempered with light and new beginnings. George played the first notes of the song once more, knowing in his heart that he had elicited change, healing, and the promise of hope. Together, they stepped into the future, emboldened by the music and strength of their shared stories, allowing the melodies of their lives to guide them through whatever lay ahead. The days blended into weeks as George, Carlos, and Sofia immersed themselves in their songwriting. They met regularly, huddled around candlelit tables at the local cafe, or nestled on George's porch, the guitar becoming a comforting bridge between their hearts. Each session felt like a pilgrimage toward healing. With every melody, they confronted their grief and celebrated their shared history. As the trio worked together, George found himself inspired deeper than he ever anticipated. The characters and experiences from their past began to surface in their music. They drew on their small-town roots, celebrations at the annual fair, hum of laughter blending with music under the stars, and the warmth of familiar faces surrounding them. Each lyric they penned reflected not just loss, but also moments of joy intertwined with sorrow. One evening, as they gathered beneath the glow of fairy lights strung across his porch, Sofia paused, her gaze contemplative. "What if we write about the journey from heartbreak to hope? About reconnecting with the world?" George felt the weight of her words resonate within him. "Yes," he agreed, excitement stirring. "It's about carrying the memories of our loved ones while moving forward." They began crafting the song, layering their voices into harmonies that soared like eagles taking flight. Together, they wove lyrics that understood grief, yet didn't fear hope, the delicate balance of letting go while cherishing those they had lost. One evening, as dusk painted the sky, George watched the sunset with a growing urgency. "Let's do something with this song," he said suddenly. "Let's perform it. Share it with others who might need to hear these words." Carlos smiled, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "A community gathering. We can invite everyone, share stories and songs. It'll be beautiful." Sophia nodded, embracing the idea. "We can use this not only to share our healing, but to inspire others, remind them that they aren't alone." George felt a swell of emotions. The prospect of stepping back into the world filled him with both excitement and apprehension. They spent the following weeks preparing for the gathering, poring over every line in the song as if polishing a gem. The melody carried a heartbeat, and with each practice, George found himself becoming more engaged in the world outside his comfort zone. The night of the gathering arrived, and George stood backstage, heart thrumming in his chest. The familiar setting of the community hall buzzed with warmth as friends, family, and locals filled the seats. Faces he hadn't seen in a while greeted him, offering support that radiated like sunbeams breaking through clouds. "Are you ready?" Carlos asked, his eyes gleaming with confidence. George took a deep breath, clenching the guitar's neck. "As ready as I'll ever be." When their turn arrived, the trio stepped into the light. The room quieted, anticipation hanging in the air like a delicate thread. George felt the warmth of familiar faces surrounding him, and suddenly the lyrics took on new meaning. They transformed from mere words into lifelines, echoing stories only he could tell. As they began to play, the previous months of collaboration blossomed into a unified performance, their voices harmonizing, entwining beautifully. With each note, George felt his fears dissipate, replaced by the solidarity forged in shared experiences. They captured the essence of nostalgia, love and healing beautifully. When they reached the chorus, the crowd seemed to pulse with their energy. Faces began to light up, nodding along, some even wiping away tears. It was as if they were all participating together in an unspoken acknowledgement of pain, the bonds of humanity knitting tighter within the space. As the final notes faded into silence, George looked into the eyes of his friends and felt the warmth of their connection with the community. The applause that broke out reverberated through him, a mixture of validation and relief. It was their moment, a shared moment of transformation. With tears glistening in his eyes, he indicated for silence, overcoming the initial wave of emotion. "Thank you for listening. This song isn't just ours. It belongs to all of you. Life is a journey, one filled with love and heartache, yet also hope. We carry our memories with us as we move forward." The audience erupted with encouragement, cheers ringing out like a heartbeat. In that moment, George felt truly reborn. The shadows that once haunted him now felt distant, overshadowed by the light of connection and shared stories, of collective healing. Following the performance, people came forward to share their own tales, conversations blending together in an intricate tapestry. Each story seemed to resonate with George's music, echoing the themes of resilience and a united spirit in facing life's challenges. As the night continued, the atmosphere was vibrant, alive with laughter and conversations, many expressing gratitude for the emotional release they had just experienced. "Your song reminded me of my father," one listener said. "I've felt lost for so long, but tonight I feel hope again." George felt the tears prick his eyes, overwhelmed by the significance of their collective experience. Here among them was a testament to the strength found in vulnerability, and he understood that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about honoring those who had touched their lives. As the evening came to a close, George looked at Carlos and Sophia, gratitude swelling in his chest. They had transformed his pain into something beautiful. The journey was still ongoing, but he no longer felt alone. His heart was full, buoyed by the community, music and friendships forged in the crucible of loss. As he walked home that night, the stars blanketed the sky like scattered diamonds. George stopped, tilting his head back to absorb the vastness above. "I can have hope," he whispered to the night, a promise filled with newfound purpose. The path ahead shimmered with possibility, illuminated not only by the legacy of love lost, but by the rebirth of dreams and unwavering hope for tomorrow. George smiled softly to himself, ready to embrace whatever came next. Guided by the melodies of life and love, he would continue to create. In the days that followed the performance, the energy from the gathering lingered around George like a warm embrace. He carried the essence of the collective healing within him, inspiring an invigorated spirit. Each morning he awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, eager to explore the uncharted paths ahead. One afternoon, as he sat on his porch, strumming absent-mindedly, Carlos stopped by, a broad grin plastered across his face. "You won't believe this," he exclaimed, pacing excitedly. "I spoke with some local radio folks about playing our song." George's heart leapt at the idea, but mingled with nervousness. "I think they'll actually play it." "Why not?" Carlos replied, leaning against the banister. "The song resonated with so many people. It's our story, and it deserves a wider audience." With a mix of excitement and apprehension, George thought of the countless lives their message could touch. "If they want to help," he said, "let's be open to wherever this takes us." The radio team arranged an interview with the trio, bringing forth a swirl of emotions in George. The journey of sharing their music with the world had shifted from an idea to a tangible opportunity, one that felt simultaneously thrilling and daunting. On the day of the interview, George arrived at the radio station, the atmosphere buzzing with anticipation. The studio was vibrant, adorned with posters of artists who had come before them. The air smelled faintly of coffee, mingling with sounds of laughter and chatter from staff moving about. As they settled into the studio, the host, Jane, greeted them with infectious enthusiasm. "Welcome. We've heard so much about your journey and the song. We can't wait to share it with our listeners." When it was time to perform live, George felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. He shared a brief story behind the song before they began, articulating the importance of community and healing. He could see the audience through the glass, nodding and leaning in, and he felt their collective energy fueling him. As they played, the music flowed seamlessly, each of their voices harmonizing beautifully. The atmosphere was electric. George's fingers flew over the strings, the chords resonating with fierce emotion. The moment felt transcendental, and he knew they were spilling their hearts open to not just fill the room, but to ignite something deep within anyone listening. Once they finished, the sound of clapping echoed through the studio. But it was Jane's reaction that struck him. "That was incredible. I think you've touched something so vital," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "We will definitely be playing your song on air." Days after their radio debut, George and his friends began to receive messages from people who had connected with the song. Each note of encouragement felt like a gentle balm that healed old wounds. They heard from people across the country, sharing stories of their own losses and hope. Angels in the form of strangers, united through shared experiences. As the messages flooded in, George discovered a newfound motivation. He decided to plan a small concert tour around the state, starting at local venues, as a way to deepen those connections and spread their message even further. He posted about it on social media, announcing the dates filled with fervor and excitement. Meanwhile, Sophia had been doing her own research, reaching out to local charities and organizations that supported those navigating grief and loss. "Let's partner up," she proposed one afternoon, her eyes aflame with passion. "We'll donate a portion of the concert proceeds to help those in need." George felt his heart swell. Absolutely. It felt so powerful to share our story. Combining that with action amplifies our message. A sense of purpose invigorated him as they prepared promotional materials that spotlighted both their performances and the charities they would support. The night of the first concert, George stood backstage in front of a small but lively crowd, feeling a wave of anticipation wash over him. The venue overflowed with friendly faces, friends, family, and community members who had followed them on this journey. As he took a moment to breathe in the atmosphere, he reflected on how far he had come since those dark nights consumed by grief. When he stepped into the spotlight, the warmth of the room enveloped him like a cherished memory. The familiar strains of their song filled the venue, voices rising together in unity. With every note, George spotted faces reflecting their joy, smiles intertwining with tears. The evening unfolded in a blend of performance and storytelling, painting a vivid picture of communal healing. After the show, attendees mingled, grateful to share in the experience and the healing that followed. Amidst the celebrations, one audience member approached George, her eyes shining with tears. "Thank you for tonight. I lost my brother, and your music helped me remember him fondly." George reached out to her, enveloping her in a warm embrace. "Thank you for sharing that with me," he said gently. It was moments like these that illuminated the purpose behind their journey, reinforcing his belief in the healing power of shared experiences. As the small tour continued on the road, they witnessed the power of storytelling cross barriers. Different faces, different pains, all coming together through music. Each concert built a tapestry woven through shared grief, laughter, and remembrance, transforming the once isolated spaces into a sanctuary of connection. Between gigs, on the long stretches of road, George found himself musing on all that he had learned. He still felt the weight of his loss, but paired against the buoyancy of collecting stories. Life was no longer just about mourning. It became a celebration of the echoes of love. One rainy afternoon, as they approached their next venue, George felt a sense of contentment wash over him. The storm clouds hung heavy, but the ambience within their van brimmed with laughter and comfort. The camaraderie forged in the quest for healing had forged an unbreakable bond between them. "Where to next, team?" Carlos asked, laughing over the sound of thunder. George smiled, heart brimming with gratitude for all that they had experienced. "Wherever the music takes us." This journey, like a river winding through the unknown, would continue to unfold, and with every step, George embraced the realities of the past while moving forward into a future gifted to him, one shaped by love, resilience, and the melodies of life. As the concert tour wound its way through small towns and cities, the momentum continued to build, and George felt the weight of responsibility deepen. The journey had blossomed from an intimate shared experience to a profound movement, charging him with the purpose of spreading their message of hope and healing. Yet even in the midst of such joy, the echo of his past remained ever present. After a particularly exhilarating performance in a quaint town nestled among rolling hills, George found himself restless late that night. The exhilaration of the crowd still thrummed in his veins, but solitude called to him, urging him to delve deeper into the shadows that still lingered within. Carlos and Sofia retired early. After long nights of travel and performing, they drifted into sleep. George, however, found solace on the porch of the inn, the air suffused with the crisp, earthy scent of pine trees. The stars twinkled overhead, feeling almost like a conversation with Maria, a reminder of her spirit ever present in his life. As he sat there, strumming his guitar, memories floated to the surface. A bittersweet flood of laughter, warmth, and love, punctuated by the ache of loss. He recalled the evenings spent together, dreaming about the future, the plans they wove with threads of hope and ambition. But that idyllic image began to shift, revealing shadows he had avoided for too long. A memory surfaced, an argument they had before her passing, words that left a sour taste on his tongue. George felt his heart constrict. He had clung to the notion of "what if" for too long. "I have to let this go," he whispered to the night air, pleading for the strength to confront the unresolved emotions that threatened to hold him back. Awareness dawned within him. Music had served as a source of healing for others, yet he hadn't fully embraced its power for himself. The essence of their shared journeys had transformed, yet he remained tethered to his pain. But in that moment something shifted, an understanding that embracing that pain was key to moving forward. The next day, George asked Carlos and Sofia to join him for a quiet morning on the porch of their lodging. The air was cooler than the previous night, the sunrise bathing the landscape in golden light. He took a deep breath, fighting the knot in his stomach. "I've been holding on to something that keeps me from fully moving on." Curiosity reflected in Carlos's eyes, while Sofia leaned in, silence inviting him to continue. "It's about Maria," George said, his voice steady despite the emotion clawing to surface. "Before she passed, we had this fight. I never got to apologize for the things I said." Sofia reached out, her hand resting on his. "That's understandable, George. It's part of the process," she reassured him. "I thought being strong meant pushing it aside," he confessed, staring into the distance as if seeking answers among the treetops. "But it's only made everything heavier." Carlos nodded, understanding etched across his face. "You need to let yourself feel that loss fully. It's okay to mourn the words left unspoken. It doesn't diminish your love." George realized then that sharing his vulnerabilities with his friends was a powerful step toward healing. "I want to channel that energy, harness the pain," he said, a spark igniting within. "Let's write a new song together, one that expresses this, the beauty and heartbreak of loving someone while facing loss." Sofia smiled softly, inspired by his courageous honesty. "I'd love to help with that, George. It's important." As the three of them began crafting the new song, George poured himself into the lyrics, letting each word reflect the emotions he had carried for far too long. He sang not just of loss but of love, his vulnerability merging with celebration. Gradually, what had once felt like a shroud now turned to light. The melody embodied both grief and gratitude, an intricate blend of the past stitched into the present. During their next concert, fueled by the exhilarating energy of their journey and this new song, George felt lighter and more attuned to himself. The audience's energy surged as they played, resonating with the powerful message of love as he shared his story openly. After the performance, more audience members enveloped him with gratitude. "Thank you for sharing. I lost my partner, and your words remind me of the love we shared," one woman said, tears streaming down her cheeks. George held her gaze firmly, finding strength in sharing both his pain and the evolving reality of his healing journey. "You're never alone in this. Love transforms. It never truly leaves," he assured her gently, feeling the words bloom in the air. The encounters reaffirmed the transformative power of vulnerability. Through his honesty, others found courage to share their own stories, leading to a ripple of connection that expanded beyond his imagination. As the tour continued, George found himself contemplating how intertwined love and loss could coexist, each enriching the other. The memories, stories, and shared songs became bridges that connected the past with the present. He learned to embrace them, instead of shying away. On the final night of the tour, standing under the spotlight once more, George looked out at the crowd, the warmth enveloping him. This shared journey had been filled with healing and discovered strength, and he felt gratitude swell in his heart. "Tonight is about more than music," George voiced into the microphone, his heart open and raw. "It's about connection, love, and allowing ourselves to feel. In our stories lies our strength." With the audience united, they stepped forward together, raising their voices in song, binding the threads of their lives and experiences. By the end, standing hand in hand with Carlos and Sofia, George smiled, feeling the collective heartbeat of the crowd, the shared rhythm of healing, connection, and love that would carry him forward. In that moment, beneath the twinkling stars, he felt the present embrace him, the past gently shifting into a memory he could cherish while stepping boldly into the promises of tomorrow. As the final notes of their performance faded into the night, George stood on stage, absorbing the applause. This journey had brought healing not just to him, but to countless others who had shared their stories. With each encounter, he felt more connected to his purpose. Backstage, Carlos and Sofia joined him in a triumphant embrace, their faces lit with pride. "We did it, George. What an incredible journey," Carlos exclaimed, his excitement infectious. Sofia nodded, her voice filled with passion. "This is just the beginning. All the lives we've touched. They deserve to be celebrated." George's heart swelled with gratitude for his friends. "Thank you for helping me find the strength to share my story. It's more than I ever dreamed of," he said, feeling the weight of his past transforming into something lighter. As they made their way back to the van, the crisp night air filled with laughter and camaraderie. Yet, amid the joy, George felt a bitter-sweet ache. He thought of Maria, wishing she could have been there to see the impact of their music. "I can almost hear her laughter," he confessed, feeling a pang of nostalgia. Carlos placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "She's with you, George. You carry her love in everything you do." The drive back to town was filled with lively conversation about planning the next steps. The excitement took root in George's heart, a desire to host a concert in their hometown, an event that combined music with healing. "I want to bring everyone together, to share their stories and remind them they're not alone," he proposed. Sophia's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "That's a fantastic idea. We can highlight local artists, share our journey, and create an atmosphere of connection." The concert arrived quickly, and George felt a blend of anticipation and nerves. Colorful banners welcomed attendees as they arrived, each face telling a story. The sense of community was palpable. It felt like a reunion. "Tonight we gather to celebrate love and healing," George announced once on stage. "Let's embrace our stories together." His words resonated deeply with the crowd, a reminder that every experience mattered. As they performed, George could feel their energy intertwining with his, each song a thread weaving through shared memories and moments of vulnerability. After the show, audience members approached him with their gratitude. "Your music reminds me of my mother. I haven't felt this kind of connection in years," one man said, his eyes glistening. George smiled, understanding the power of their shared experiences. Thank you for sharing that with me. Love never truly leaves us. It transforms. In the days following the concert, George reflected on how intertwined love and loss could be. The stories they shared became a lifeline, bridges connecting his past with the present. He planned another event, hoping to continue building these connections. Reaching out to the community became a fulfilling part of his routine. With every gathering, he felt more complete, inspired by the exchange of stories that continued to unfold. Standing under the evening stars during the next concert, George felt a deep sense of belonging. Sharing the stage with Carlos and Sofia, he realized that they hadn't just curated music, and instead they had created a haven for healing and growth. As the audience raised their voices in collective harmony, a sense of peace washed over him. He had traveled far from the numbness of grief into a world brimming with hope and connection. In that moment, George felt how love and loss coexisted beautifully, each shaping his story and those of others. He had come full circle, embracing the essence of resilience and the new chapters that awaited him, the melodies of life, love and healing playing ever onward.